Hey everybody, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2019 Ram 1500, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit. There's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Ram down the road safely. The first one's going to be your base plate, and that's going to provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. And that tow bar is going to be the second component. That's going to be the physical link that connects the front of your Ram to the back of your motorhome. The third main component is going to be safety cables. And these are there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. These are going to keep your truck connected to the motorhome. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring. And that's going to transfer the lighting signals from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Ram. That way other motorists will know your intentions as you're going down the road. And last but not least, the fifth main component is going to be a braking system. And what that braking system is going to do is apply the brakes in your Ram whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, helping to bring you to a more safe and predictable stop. So this is a perfect example on how the kit's going to work. As you can see, we have the left turn signal going on our motorhome, and it's transferring it back here to our Ram. And that's going to be the case for our right turn, our brake lights, and our tail lights as well. So we're all covered as far as the lighting signals go. Now, as far as being able to do this, the diode wiring isn't the only way, but it's the way that I would prefer. And I say that because once it's installed, you're not going to be able to see it, so it doesn't take away from the looks of your vehicle. And it's going to be really straightforward. More or less, whenever you're ready to hook up, you're just going to have to plug in a cable. And that beats, in my opinion, the other option, which would be magnetic lighting, for example. With that kit, you would have to stick the lights on the back of your truck, run wires up to the back of the motorhome, hook it up every single time you want to flat tow. And then not to mention, whenever you're ready to disconnect, you're going to have to remove all that stuff and find somewhere to keep it. So not nearly as convenient and easy to use as a kit like this. And not to mention as well, since this kit does use diodes, what those are going to do is protect your Ram's factory wiring. That way, if your motorhome happens to have an electrical issue or a short, something like that, you're not going to damage or compromise your Ram's factory wiring. And that's really important, especially in today's newer vehicles. The electrical systems are really complicated, and you don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. And because of the diodes, it's something you're not going to have to worry about. So as I mentioned, how easy it is to hook up, all you're going to have to do is plug this cable in to the front of your truck. So this side would go to the front of your Ram, and the other end would just get plugged into the back of your motorhome. So super straightforward. Now there is one thing I do want to mention. There's several different kits that are available, and really the only difference with them is what type of cable you're actually going to get, because certain tow bars and setups require a different type of cable. And in our case right here, we have the straight cable. This is a perfect selection for those of you that have a tow bar with channels. That way you can utilize the channels, run your cable through there, and keep everything nice and clean and work like it should. Another option that you could use if your tow bar has channels is what's called the hybrid cable, which is this one here. So you can see the majority of it is a straight cable, but on the motorhome side, there's going to be some coils there, and that'll just give you a little extra length. So whichever one you prefer, really. There's also kits available that don't come with a cable at all, and that would be a kit you would choose if your tow bar comes included with one. So for example, like the Roadmaster Nighthawk, that comes with the cable and the plug, and so the wiring kit that you would want to choose is just the bare bones one. You'd want to need an extra cable since your tow bar already has it. There's a couple more options as well. If your tow bar does not have channels, you could pick up the kit that is just a coiled cable completely through there. And you would use that because The coils are going to keep it up off the ground whenever you're going straight down the road, but give you that extra length you need whenever you make those turns. All those cables that I mentioned have a 6-way round on one end, so the vehicle side, and a 7-way for the motorhome side. There's this kit as well, has a 7-way for the motorhome side and a 4-way round. So if your vehicle has that set up, this would be the kit that you want. And last but not least, there's also a kit that has a 4-way flat on each side. So if your vehicle connector has a 4-way flat connector, and same thing with your motorhome on the back, the 4-way would plug in to each one, and this would be the kit that you'd want to select. So at the end of the day, at least in my experience, a diode wiring kit is definitely the way to go. Just the overall reliability and the ease of use makes it so you really can't go wrong. Now, as far as the installation goes, really not too complicated. It does take a little bit of time, considering you do have to run your wires here from the front all the way to the back of the truck. But as long as you take your time, really shouldn't give you a whole lot of issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and do that together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our truck, and what we need to do is grab one end of our harness and get our plug hooked up to it. So what you're going to want to do is, before you separate these ends or anything, take the rubber dust cap, just kind of slide that on, and then we're going to split our ends there, so we can just kind of carefully cut in between them, and we're going to pull these wires back maybe a few inches, and then we can strip back the insulation. One thing I do like to do once I split these though is kind of just come back and cut maybe a 1/4 inch or so off the end there, just to kind of give us a a fresh end. And so I'll just strip that insulation back. That way we can get our plug ready to get everything hooked up here. So here's the end stripped back, and once you have them stripped, you can give them a little twist there to keep them nice and tight. And then we can grab a connector plug. The way this is going to work on the back, we're going to have terminals that are labeled with set screws. And so you're going to loosen up the set screws by taking a small Phillips head screwdriver and just backing them out. You don't want to completely remove them. They're kind of tricky to get back in and easy to lose, so just back them out some. And we're going to hook our wires up to the appropriate terminals. So starting right here, this one's going to be labeled TM for taillights, so our brown wire will go to it. This one here is GD for ground, so our white wire will go there. This one here is labeled LT for left turn, so our yellow wire will go to it. And this one here is labeled RT for right turn, so our green wire will go to that one. So with that being said, we'll just go ahead and start with our taillight, so our brown wire. So that just plugs in. And you can kind of just hold it steady, take your screwdriver and snug down the set screw. Then I'll do that same thing for each one of our wires. So here's what the back of our plug is going to look like once you have all the wires inserted. And once that's complete, you can take your dust cap, place it on the back of it. And in our case, our base plate has a bracket right here. So we'll just go ahead and secure our plug. And then what we can do is start to route our wiring. So once I get this secure, I'll route our wiring and show you the path that I took. So I started to route our wiring, and back here behind our bumper, it just kind of goes in and over towards the outside of our vehicle a little bit and just runs right up into the engine compartment. So now here in the engine compartment, here's where our wiring comes on up, and what I went ahead and did is cut just the white wire. So you very carefully cut it. And this side of it, the side that runs down to our connector plug in the front of our vehicle, that's going to need to get grounded. And so I peeled that back some. You will strip off insulation. Take a ring terminal here and crimp that on. And what I'm going to do is there's actually 2 ground studs right here. So you can use either one of them. I'm just going to use this one. I'm going to remove the nut using a 10mm socket. Once you have that removed, you can take your ring terminal, put that over the stud, and tighten the nut back down. And that'll give us the ground that we need. Now, you can notice I left a kind of a loop here, a little bit of extra wire to work with. And I did that because our particular braking system actually taps into this wiring. And so that's something to think about. If you make everything nice and tight on this area, it could be difficult to hook that up later. So just something to keep in mind. So once that's tight, we have the other end of our white wire still attached to our harness. And we're just going to peel that completely off the rest of our harness. And what we're going to do is hold on to this length of white wire because we are going to use it a little bit later on. So I continued to route our wiring, and I just ran it along through here. And at this point, it just drops straight down along the firewall to the underside of our vehicle. So I got our wiring ran down to the back of the truck. This is where I went. It just comes down along through here. And then on the side of our frame rail, we have some factory wiring harnesses. And I just followed that, securing it along the way with some zip ties. And when you do this, you want to make sure to avoid any hot or moving parts. So it just continues along through here, kind of behind this storage thing, and goes around along through here. It comes up and over our body mount there, along through there. So our wiring comes right through here, along the harness. And this part you can actually see the wiring a little bit through the wheel well. So I actually just took some of the included wire loom and used a section of it there to help clean up the install look. With that said, it just runs along up through here. And then at this point, we're going to have kind of a junction. I separated the green wire from the yellow and brown. The green wire will get ran to the passenger side. And while I was doing that, at the same time, you can grab that piece of white wire that we had saved, run that over to the passenger side as well. And we can kind of just let the other end of our white wire and our yellow and brown wire hang here for now. The white and green wire simply just run up and over our hitch. Just along through here, there's a factory wire harness that secured it to. It's going to come up and over and stop right here. And again, we can kind of just let this hang for the time being, and we can go up top, get our taillights removed. That way we can run our wires into the taillight pockets and get everything hooked up. So now what we can do is get our taillights removed. So you're going to open up your tailgate, and we're going to have 4 fasteners. 2 of them, we're going to use a T25 Torx bit to pull those out. Then we're going to have 2 push pin style fasteners, one right here. You can use a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver to work that fastener out. Kind of just pry behind it, pull it out. And then we're going to have another push pin fastener right there behind our cable end. So that cable's kind of in the way if you just leave your tailgate down. However, if you lift it up a couple inches, you can move the cable out of the way and make it a lot easier to get to. We can grab our tail light and work it out. Just kind of a word of advice, sometimes these get kind of hung up and it can be a little tricky to get the tail light out. So what you can do is get a plastic trim tool and kind of help pry that light out. This one, we got lucky, it kind of just came right out. And then we can disconnect our electrical. So you're gonna have a red tab there. And if this is kind of getting hung up as well, kind of common for these tail lights, what you can do is just take a trim tool or a screwdriver, kind of help assist that out. And then you can push down on that center tab and get it disconnected. This one's really tight, so what I'm going to do is hold that tab down with my finger and kind of just help assist that connector off the light. And with it disconnected, we can set it off to the side and repeat the same process on the other side of our truck. So what I went ahead and did was just reach down through our taillight pocket and pull up our new wiring and just kind of zip tied it up here. Strip back the ends of the insulation, and now we can prep these wires. So the yellow wire, what you're going to do is take a blue Spade terminal and crimp that on. The white and brown wire, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to twist the ends together. Take the yellow terminal, place that over both the ends, and crimp that down. So what you can do now is just peel off some of the electrical tape that's covering your wires. That way we can identify what wire does what and get everything hooked up. So I tested everything, and over here on the driver's side, this white wire with the gray stripe is going to be our taillight signal, and the wire right next to it here, it's just an all white wire. That is going to be our stop and turn. So what you can do, let's come back a little ways, and we're going to cut these wires, and all four ends you're going to strip back. And on each end, once they're stripped, you're going to take a blue terminal, place that over the end, and crimp it down. So once you have all the terminals on, we can grab our diodes. And we'll just start with the white and gray wire. That's going to be our taillight signal. You're going to take the end of the diode that has that single terminal there, plug it in, the connector closest to our factory plug there. And this will go color for color, so we'll get the other white and gray wire, plug that in. And as I said, since this is our taillight signal, we're going to take the white and brown wire and connect it to there. And pretty much the same thing for the other diode. We'll take that single terminal in to the connector closest to the plug. Take the other matching color, plug that in. And since this is our stop and turn, we're going to take the yellow, new yellow wire, and plug that in like so. So what I went ahead and did is just the factory wires here that we exposed. Since everything's hooked up, I just taped them up. And now we can secure our diodes by removing the backing paper there. And we'll stick them together. And then what we can do is take our taillight, plug it back in, And then just re-secure everything. So over here on the passenger side, I hooked them up the same way that we did the driver's side. The only difference being the color of wires that you're going to use. So the factory white wire that has a orange stripe, that's going to be our taillight signal. So the new white wire will get plugged into that diode. The factory white wire that has a green stripe, that's going to be our stop and turn signals. So the new green wire will get plugged into that diode. So once you have everything hooked up, go ahead, grab your taillight, and reinstall it just like we did the other side. Now that we have everything hooked up, it's a good idea to test our wiring. So I went ahead and plugged into a testing box. Turn on our taillights. We'll try our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brakes. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2019 Ram 1500.